The Mavericks had a lot of hype going into the 2021 season. Luka Doncic was the preseason odds-on favorite to win MVP because it was expected that he'd stuff the stat sheet and lead the Mavericks to a top 3 seed in the West. The former came into fruition as Luka had an MVP caliber season, but the latter did not, as Dallas finished with the 5th seed. They were now positioned to face the Clippers in the first round for the second year in a row. Luka plays horrifically, hitting contested 3 after contested 3 over the likes of Paul George, Pat Bev, and Kawhi Leonard. Early on, it looked as if the Mavs were going to upset the Clips, but a disappearing act from Kristaps Porzingis contributed to LA eventually coming back and winning the series. Blame was thrown around from players to coaches, and from coaches back to players, which eventually led to the changes made in Dallas in the 2021 offseason. So speaking of that offseason, let's take a look at it. It was pretty desolate, I believe that is the word. Desolate? I think that's the correct word. There were no additions made in Dallas through trades. There were no additions in the draft because they traded basically all their picks for the next 2 years. Actually, no, I think they'll have a pick next year and the year after that. The main additions or pickups that Dallas had this offseason were the signings of Sterling Brown and Reggie Bullock. Now, we know Luka Doncic is a very ball-dominant player, similar to the likes of James Harden and LeBron James. Throw Luka Doncic into that equation. They're not really off-ball type of players. They're not going to be off-ball flying around screens. They're going to be on the ball, primarily facilitating or creating for themselves. So you want to surround those players with as many snipers from outside as possible. Both Sterling Brown and Reggie Bullock fit the bill, and these are both players that can defend on the perimeter, which Dallas has needed help in as of late. Over the past 2 or 3 years, their defense has lagged further behind their offense, and picking up these 2 defensive wings can only help them, you would think. Now, in terms of subtractions, they lost Josh Richardson due to trade. I don't know what they got back in that trade. He was traded to Boston. I don't know if it was just a salary dump or they got a future second round pick. Let me just do a quick research really quickly. Oh, the Mavericks get Moses Brown, who's a young center who played in OKC in Portland. Okay, so they got Moses Brown. My bad. Let me edit the graphic because of the big pickup of Moses Brown. I'm sorry, I'm being sarcastic. No disrespect to Moses Brown, but that's not a trade that's really going to move the needle. Basically, what I'm saying is this trade was just a trade to get Josh Richardson outside of Dallas. He kind of struggled in his one and only year there. He was brought in the Seth Curry trade in the 2020 offseason because Dallas could jeopardize some shooting for some defense. That's what they were thinking. I don't think Josh Richardson's defensive impact was as big as Dallas was hoping. Josh Richardson also showed in his Miami and Philly days that he was more than just a defender. He could handle the ball a bit and get to the rim and create in the mid-range from time to time. And that really wasn't consistent for Dallas throughout the regular season, and it kind of wasn't there at all for Dallas in the playoffs. They also lost James Johnson, who's just a versatile forward that can hit a 3 from time to time, but that's not a big loss. Moving into the personnel, at the guard positions, they have Luka, Tim Hardaway, Jalen Brunson, and Josh Green. I think that's their top 4 guards. Maybe instead of Josh Green, it will be Trey Burke, because we've seen him provide a lot of valuable minutes for Dallas in the past. Maybe it will be Tyrell Terry, their 2020 pick, their other 2020 pick. But that 4th guard spot I expect to fluctuate throughout the season. I'm just going to say Josh Green because I think he's the young guy with potential as a 3-and-D guy. And Dallas is going to continue to need help on the defensive end. I think Josh Green can provide that this year in more opportunity. I'll talk a bit about Jalen Brunson, who really had a resurgence of a season last year. Actually, I don't know if resurgence is the best word or breakout is the best word. But vocabulary aside, Jalen Brunson had a great year. As that backup point guard, his 3-point efficiency was off the charts. I think he's going to be one of the best backup point guards in the league for the remainder of his prime because he's still young. This is only his 4th year, I think, in the league. and I think he's already one of the best backup point guards, and I think he'll continue to do so this year for Dallas. At the forward positions, Dallas has Maxi Kleber, Dorian Finney-Smith, the two multi-positional, versatile defending forwards that can hit threes, and they also have the two pickups in Reggie Bullock and Sterling Brown. And their center rotation is going to consist of Kristaps, Dwight Powell, and Boban Marjanovic. Now, Kristaps Porzingis is a very curious case because in New York we saw the potential as him being a demigod, this 7'3" dude that can handle the ball on the perimeter, post up from time to time, shoot the lights out, and rim protect like no other. And that kind of not disappeared, but it faded away after the injury. His first year in Dallas was an adjustment phase because he's playing with somebody like Luka Doncic, ball dominant. Kristaps is going to have to adjust to playing a bit more of a pick and pop role and playing off of that. His second year was a bit more consistent though in the regular season, though in the playoffs he kind of just turned into a catch and shoot guy in the corner, and that's not really how you're going to get the most out of Kristaps. Now you can blame who you want to blame, but Kristaps blamed it on how Dallas in general, Rick Carlisle was putting him there and just mainly turning it into the Luka Doncic show. And then you can also blame Kristaps himself for not being like the dominant 7'3" dude, like basically saying to Rick Carlisle, bro, I'm 7'3", feed me down low. Allocate the blame however you want to, that's just what's been said back and forth. But now, with Rick Carlisle being gone, the new coach is Jason Kidd. Now this is kind of, I guess, the biggest switch in Dallas because there really wasn't much turnover. Besides the head coaching switch, Rick Carlisle, I don't think he was fired. I think he just didn't return. And then Dallas picking up Jason Kidd, who spent the past 2 years in LA as an assistant coach, and he contributed however much to LA's great defense over the past 2 seasons. So we'll see if he can have a similar effect to Dallas's defense this season, and if he can be a positive in terms of handling KP on the offensive end. But yeah, there really wasn't much roster turnover for Dallas. It's pretty much the same roster core we've seen over the past 2 years, besides just offloading the versatile wing in Jay Rich and getting back some 3-and-D wings in free agency. But like I said, or actually no, I haven't said this, but in my opinion, the pressure is going to be really on KP this year to be a number 2, with him shifting blame away from him and towards Rick Carlisle for his postseason struggles. With him gone, it's now on KP to really bounce back. He's going to have to be a consistent number 2 option to raise this team's ceiling. In my opinion, for Dallas to get out of the monotony of the mid towards the end of the playoff teams in the Western Conference, for them to get out of that and maybe rise amongst the ranks of contenders out west, KP is going to have to play like an all-star. He might have to be an all-star for Dallas to hit that mark. I'll briefly talk about Luka. I don't really know what else he can do on the offensive end. He's basically been playing at MVP caliber for the past 2 seasons. He's one of the best offensive weapons in the league, if not best statistically. His defense has improved to being solid, and in my opinion, he might be in that early Cleveland LeBron stage where he himself can only carry a team so far. With second and third options like Zydrunas Ilgauskas and Mo Williams, that would be Luka's, Kristaps Porzingis, and Tim Hardaway. I don't really know how much Luka can carry this Dallas Mavericks team without a bigger influx of talent coming from the outside, whatever that has to be. Looking at next season, I expect the starting lineup to be Luka at the 1. I think they'll start Reggie Bullock at the 2. Their forward rotation will be Finney-Smith and Kleber in the starting 3 and 4, and Porzingis, of course, will be down low. 2 through 4 in the starting lineup with the likes of Reggie Bullock, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Maxi Kleber. That is extremely versatile. All can basically guard 3 or 4 positions themselves, and they're great on-ball defenders. Dorian and Maxi are great help side and rotational defenders as well. Porzingis is still 7'3". He might not be as dynamic of a shot blocker as he was before the injury, but he's still a 7'3" dude you have to finish over at the rim. If J Kidd can help KP in terms of defending pick and rolls and where he should be in those situations, because with the Lakers, they've dealt with rim running rim protecting bigs like Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee, who you don't want on the perimeter, you want under the rim, and they made those defenses work. KP you want under the rim, defending the basket as much as possible. J-Kid has some recent experience in dealing with that type of personnel, so maybe he can have a similar impact on Porzingis that he had in LA. Though, I mean, I don't know. Who knows how much of an impact J-Kid's defensive schemes had in LA, but all we can really say is that he was a part of LA's elite defenses over the past 2 years. I expect Dallas to have like a 45-37 record and them to finish around 6th in the West. They'll be behind the Suns, the Jazz, probably the Trailblazers and Nuggets, and then teams like the Warriors and Lakers who finished behind them last year are healthier, that's redundant, are healthier, and LA just got a third star in Russell Westbrook, so I think they'll jump over Dallas this year, but I could be wrong. That's just my prediction. In terms of ratings, Dallas should be in the top 10. I'll say around 7th. Luka can carry an offense to a top half offensive rating by himself. They still have KP, who is still good despite what we saw of him last postseason. Luka is surrounded by more shooters than he was last year. Taking out Jay Rich and adding 2 plus 40% three-point shooters. Yeah, there's a lot of spacing around Luka, so I think that contributes to a guaranteed top 3rd offensive rating. Defensive rating, I'll say they get to middle of the pack, which will be an improvement. The Mavs have solid defensive personnel surrounding Doncic. They've had that for a while, but have always just been subpar for some reason. Though KP hasn't been as impactful defensively as he was in New York, they've still had good defensive personnel. This year I do expect improvement. Like I said, Jason Kidd can maybe provide an impact. They also added some great on-ball perimeter defending depth with Bullock and Sterling Brown. You couple that with the versatile defensive forwards they already have in Finney-Smith and Kleba. Maybe Josh Green gets more minutes his sophomore year. He has potential as a versatile defensive wing. So I think the Mavericks will have their season end in the 2nd round this year. I think this is the year that Luka gets out of the 1st round and upsets a team like the Nuggets, Blazers, or Jazz, which are teams I think he'd be likely to face in the 1st round. Because if you throw in the player pool, all those players on both teams, like Mavericks against Nuggets, Mavericks against Blazers, Mavericks against Jazz, I think Luka Doncic could be the best player on the floor at all times against those teams, and that's something that can carry you in the playoffs. With that being said, they'll probably face a better team in the 2nd round like the Suns, Lakers, or Warriors and get eliminated there. The direction for Dallas is buying. You can't say they're contending because they're simply not one of the best teams in the league, like amongst that inner core of teams. But I think they're in a position that if they were somehow able to add another star or somehow upgrade KP into a better number 2 option, they could be viewed as contenders if that were to happen. Though I don't know how they'd make that acquisition. Tyrell Terry and Josh Green aren't the most attractive young prospects in the world. Also, their draft pick situation isn't the best, I think. But crazier things have happened in the NBA, so only time will tell. Dallas can somewhat breathe a sigh of relief for the fact that they extended Luka on his rookie max, so they don't have to worry about him leaving or wanting to leave anytime soon. But that doesn't mean they should be complacent, though after this offseason that's kind of what they're doing. Sure, they made a head coaching switch in bringing in Jason Kidd, and they brought in some solid 3-and-D wings which fit the personnel for surrounding Doncic, but those pickups aren't going to move the needle, especially given that they traded away Josh Richardson for nothing, who despite his struggles last season is much more talented than Bullock and Brown. So given Dallas's mediocre offseason, for them to improve their standing out west, the adjustments are going to have to occur from within. I don't know if there's another level offensively for Doncic to hit, given that he's already arguably a top 5 offensive talent. The pressure will really be on Porzingis, given the amount of draft picks that were traded to acquire him and the fact that he blamed his poor inconsistent showings on the way he was used by Carlisle. He's gone now, so it's up to the new head coach Jason Kidd to put KP in the optimal positions for him to succeed and to really get the Mavs defense up to the high potential I personally think it has given its personnel. In my opinion, Dallas is not a contender, but Luka Doncic is a superstar. So if KP can bounce back and play like an all-star, if Hardaway can continue to be a consistent 3rd option, and if Jason Kidd can get Dallas's defense to around top 3rd in rating, if all of these things go right for Dallas, then I think it is possible for Luka to lift this team to the tier of serious contenders.